Good afternoon, everybody. Big Mike back here with you once again. And welcome back to Big Mike Talks. And this time, it's that time of year again. It's time for the Pro Wrestling Weekly Roundup. And where we go over what I think is the most important things going on in pro wrestling today. And for now, we start with Monday Night Raw. As we start out with Solo Sikoa versus Kevin Owens, which was a fun back and forth kind of hoss match, kind of indie style match, I guess. The match sadly comes to its end when Jimmy Uso interferes, and both he and Solo Sikoa start beating down Kevin Owens. When coming out to make the save, Sami Zayn, who runs off Solo and Jimmy. And while Kevin Owens is down in the corner, Sami Zayn extends his hand, but Kevin Owens pretty much just rolls out of the ring and goes to the back. So, that storyline's definitely picking up a little bit. Hopefully, we end up seeing Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens teaming up to take on the Usos, which, there's a bit more coming on Raw. Just wait. So, apparently, Lashley is in the ring. He has a microphone. He wants a true face-to-face with Bray Wyatt. Now, I have seen some reports, I don't know how true they are, that Bray Wyatt has left WWE. Now, for right now, they're just rumors, but apparently Bray Wyatt was pulled from last night's MSG show, so put on some tinfoil caps and we'll see what happens from there. Next up, a very kind of one-sided affair as Bianca Belair takes on Carmella, who has Chelsea Green in her corner, in which that team should be fun going forward. Like I said, entertaining match, but a little predictable and one-sided as Bianca Belair picks up the win. Post-match, Carmella and Green start a beatdown on Bianca, who then gets saved by her WrestleMania challenger, Asuka, who comes out. She tries to use her mist, as we're going to call it, on Carmella. Misses, hits Chelsea Green, so I believe later tonight we're going to see Green versus Asuka, which that should be a fine match. Next up, we have the Logan Paul Seth Rollins face-to-face, in which we pretty much get their WrestleMania match pretty much set up. So that should be fun. We get backstage with Heyman and the Bloodline, with Heyman pretty much saying, later tonight, you solve the Sami Zayn problem. So we'll see what happens from there. Next up, we have Finn Balor versus Johnny Gargano with their respective groups at ringside. Balor with Judgment Day, Gargano with Dexter Lumis. In a really fun back and forth match, they worked really well together. I'm not sure if they worked anywhere together on the independent circuit or the non-WWE circuit. But this was definitely a fun match. Judgment Day then tries to interfere. No, what happens is Edge's music plays. Judgment Day goes on the ramp. He comes from behind through the crowd and distracts Finn Balor enough for Gargano to get the win. So that's kind of interesting, pushing their storyline forward. It is then revealed in a backstage interview later on with Edge that he wants a face-to-face with Balor, which is probably going to lead to a WrestleMania match between the two. maybe with a stipulation. We'll see. Next up, we have John Cena in a face-to-face with Austin Theory. Theory throws the challenge out to John Cena for WrestleMania for the United States title. Initially, Cena says no, but then later on he says, I wanted to do it to protect you, not because I'm quitting. And then he accepts the match. So at WrestleMania, we are getting Cena versus Austin Theory for the U.S. title, which that should be a fun one. A bit later on, we have Lita, Trish, and Becky Lynch celebrating their tag team title win. Out comes Damage Control, pretty much puts them down. And then Becky issues a trios match challenge between her, Lita, and Trish versus Damage Control. Bayley then accepts on behalf of Damage Control, and it looks like the other two are maybe not having it, but then they start brawling. So it looks like that WrestleMania match is set. That should be an interesting one. And now we have our main event for Monday Night Raw, which is Sami Zayn versus Jey Uso, which was a definitely fun, little brutal match in which it looked like Jey wanted to hurt Sami instead of picking up a win. Which then leads to, out of the crowd, Jey Uso making his big return. He gets up on the announce table, starts jabbing. Jimmy then sees him, puts a smile on his face, almost gets hit by a Sami Zayn Helluva Kick, and then he succumbs to the roll-up for the victory for Sami Zayn, which then leads to Sami Zayn on the outside, Jimmy and Jey in the ring together. It looks like, Jey is about to do something with Jimmy. He then gets out of the ring, starts to go up the ramp. He and Sami go eye to eye, and then they embrace, making Sami think, oh, I now have an ally against the Bloodline. It looks like they're about to get in the ring and do something against Jimmy, and then all of a sudden, super kick to the face by Jey. He then pretty much tells Sami, no, I wasn't on your side. This is about family, in which it was revealed last SmackDown that Roman would be blaming Jimmy if Jey doesn't come back to the Bloodline. In which, what that means, I'm not sure. Jimmy and Jey then beat down Sami Zayn a bit. Solo Sikoa comes out. Looks like he's about to hit the Samoan Spike. Out comes Cody Rhodes, a very interesting ally for Sami Zayn, considering they've been hyping each other up for their matches against Roman. Sami Zayn at Elimination Chamber. Cody coming up for WrestleMania, which I can't wait for. And yeah, that's pretty much it for Monday Night Raw. I really enjoyed it. There were some slow, sloggy moments, but overall, I'm having fun watching WWE. Next up, NWA Power, in which we start with EC3 pretty much Babe Ruthing himself, calling him shot at a third world title win. Now, currently, the current challenger for Tyrus for the next pay-per-view is Chris Adonis, the former Chris Masters. So, when that's going to happen for EC3, I'm not sure. This then leads into a match between EC3 and NWA newcomer Dante Smiley, who definitely a little bit more quick on his feet than EC3, but ultimately EC3 hits the 1%er and then wins with a crossface, which you rarely see EC3 win via submission. So I'm glad he's adding to his repertoire a little bit. And I'm excited to see what Dante Smiley has for himself for the future. Next up, Blunt Force Trauma, who is a masked tag team. In not so many words, issue a challenge to the NWA Tag Team Champions, La Rebellion. So we'll see where that goes. And finally, our main event of the evening, as Camille, the NWA World Women's Champion, takes on yet another NWA newcomer in Ruthie J. Now, Ruthie, again, like the previous debutee, Dante, using her speed to overcome a lot of power from Camille, but ultimately Camille hits her spear for the win. And honestly, Ruthie J looked really good in this match. Hopefully, get to see a little bit more from her. And next up, we have MLW Underground, which was very enjoyable this week, as we kick off with Jacob Fatu, former MLW World Champion, taking on the returning MLW Middleweight Champion, Lio Rush, in a fun yet kind of unusual big guy versus little guy dynamic, as Jacob Fatu actually kind of kept up with Lio Rush, which that was interesting to see. Ultimately, after a Samoan drop into a moonsault, Jacob Fatu picks up the win. Post-match, Alexander Hammerstone, the current world champion, gets in the ring from his position on commentary. He was doing commentary for the match. Gets right into Fatu's face. They just stare each other down for a little bit. Then the shoving match starts. And then they start to brawl, in which I cannot wait for their next match coming up. That should be a fun one. Next up, we have a very interesting tag team match as the Billington Bulldogs, that's the Dynamite Kid's children, take on the Bumaye Fight Club, which is Myron Reed and Mr. Thomas. In which, if the Bulldogs get the win, their cousin, Harry Smith, aka the British Bulldog's son, takes on Alex Kane in a future match. And honestly, I kind of dug the chemistry between these two teams, especially with Mr. Thomas and the Bulldogs, considering Mr. Thomas is a bit of a bigger dude. The Bulldogs win with the Doomsday Dropkick, and we get a match between Alex Kane and the British Bulldogs kid. So, that should be a fun one. It does seem like EJ Nduka and Calvin Tankman in a backstage segment are on the same page now after Nduka challenged Hammerstone for the world title. So they are putting their tag team titles on the line next week against Lance Anoa'i and Juicy Finale, who are in a group with Jacob Fatu. So that match should be interesting. Again, backstage, Mance Warner threatens the calling card guys, which don't have a name yet, we'll get there, for taking out his little buddy, Microman. So, he then calls out any member of the group for a match for next week, in which then it is revealed that the group, led by Raven, includes Ricky Shane Page and Akira, both guys of GCW fame. So yeah, this should be an interesting match for next week, and a very interesting reveal. So we'll see what happens there. And finally, our main event of the evening for the MLW World Heavyweight title, as Alex Hammerstone takes on Lance Anoa'i. And honestly, this match doesn't get very far in. A couple of moves. Then Jacob Fatu gets up on the ring apron. Hammerstone then brings him in. They start brawling again. And the match is called off. Now, then, the rest of Samoan SWAT team, that being Finau and Jacob Fatu, Juicy Finau and Lance Anoa'i, then also get involved. And then the MLW Tag Team Champions jump in to continue the brawl, which, definitely going to be interesting to see what MLW has up its sleeve coming. But I'm excited. Next up, we have AEW Dynamite, which once again starts off with the All-Atlantic title match as Orange Cassidy takes on Jay Lethal in a very good, very athletic match, which sees both sides target, the left shoulder of their opponents, which is always good to see, solid wrestling, pinpointing, ligaments. And then near the finish of the show, Lethal goes for his lethal injection, in which then his shoulder crumbles and he falls flat on his face. And then after a big old orange punch, Orange Cassidy retains. And while Cassidy is celebrating, Jeff Jarrett comes up from behind, El Kabong with the guitar, stroke, and it is revealed later in the night that Jeff Jarrett will be going after Orange Cassidy's title, which has now been renamed the International title, which I'm okay with that. It is definitely a little close to the Intercontinental title, but the All-Atlantic thing has kind of it's been contested a lot by the fans. Let's just go with that. Next up, we have Ricky Starks in the ring, glad to be done with the JAS and Jericho, saying he doesn't really know what the future holds. Then blazing on the Titantron, Bullet Club, for life, in which a lot of people, myself included, was thinking this is the debut of Jay White to AEW. He is currently a free agent, and, we all thought it was going to be him. Instead, it's current AEW guy, Juice Robinson, who sneaks up behind Ricky Starks, attacks him. So we are going to get a thing between Starks and Juice, which I'm okay with. This should be a fun one, and hopefully will elevate Juice Robinson a little bit. Next up, we have an in-ring promo from Ruby Soho, pretty much explaining her actions at Revolution and why she turned on the AEW OGs, like Hayter and Britt Baker. And she pretty much has said, I've been on a hill on my own since I got here. When I beat Statlander, y'all booed me. When I got beat by Hayter, y'all cheered. And that set her off, and she's ready to take her rightful place in the women's division and rebuild the women's division as she, Saraya, and Toni Storm see fit. And then that leads into a match between Ruby Soho and Sky Blue, in which definitely a little bit predictable, but still pretty fun match. Which ends after a Destination Unknown. And then Saraya, Toni Storm come out, start spray painting an L on Sky Blue. Out comes Willow Nightingale, who has been teaming with Ruby Soho as of late, trying to talk her out of this, trying to get her back on track. Soho then attacks Willow, and they spray paint her as well. Next up, we have an FTR promo pretty much saying we're going to take the AEW tag belts from the Guns, in which, yes, please. No offense to the Guns. I like the Guns. FTR, easily the best tag team in the world. And they deserve a better AEW tag team title run than their original run, which I believe was during the pandemic. against the Bucks. So we'll see where that goes. The Jericho Appreciation Society, consisting of Jericho, Daniel Garcia, and Sammy Guevara, defeat Top Flight and AR Fox in a fun, kind of hard to keep track of trios match that ended after Hager interference and then a Judas effect from Jericho. Post-match, JAS pretty much run down, pretty much calling this the greatest trios win in AEW history, and then puts them at the front of the line for the AEW championships. They call out House of Black. Lights go out, lights come back on. Carry on my wayward son. The Elite come out, pretty much staking their claim as former Trios Tag Team Champions, looking for their next challenge. Then on the Titantron, House of Black show up, pretty much saying, if you want these titles, then they stop. Lights go out again. Lights come back on. They're on the ramp between the Jericho Appreciation Society and the Elite, with Malachi bringing the microphone up, pretty much saying, come get them, which sets up a big old triple threat trios match for the trios titles next week. That's going to be nutty. This is going to be a heck of a match and just hell to keep track of. So we'll see how that goes. Next up, we have in tag team action playa, the Blackpool Combat Club, consisting of Jon Moxley and Claudio Castagnoli, with Wheeler Yuta joining them ringside, take on Dark Order members Alex Reynolds, and John Silver. This was a great back and forth bout, kind of reminiscent of when Evil Uno took on Moxley, which that was a lot of fun to watch. Ultimately, Mox made Alex Reynolds submit with the Bulldog choke. Post-match, Mox keeps holding the submission in, and then Claudio and Yuta beat down Silver. That brings out Evil Uno to try and make the save, which that doesn't ultimately work. And then out comes Hangman Page, which runs off the Blackpool Combat Club. We are now getting, this week, another trios match. This time, it's the entire Blackpool Combat Club, Claudio Castagnoli, Moxley, and Yuta, taking on Hangman Adam Page, Evil Uno, and the returning Stu Grayson, who I don't think he is still under contract with AEW. Maybe he re-signed somewhere. But they're going to be in Canada. Stu Grayson lives up there, so a nice little reuniting is definitely a lot of fun. And then finally, we got our main event of the evening for the TNT Championship as Wardlow defends against Willie Hobbs, Powerhouse Hobbs, for the title. Now, a little backstory. Wardlow re-won this title at Revolution, but apparently during the week, someone broke into his car, took not only his title, but all of his gear. So instead of just a regular match, we had a no DQ last man standing match, which started in the back with them beating down each other down using a car, and then eventually making their way to the arena. They brawl for a bit, throwing each other through barricades, using chairs, and it was definitely a big kind of fight feel instead of a match. Match comes to a close with both men on the ramp right by the commentator's desk. Wardlow looking for a powerbomb, out comes QT Marshall, hits him with a chair, and then a double powerbomb from Wardlow and QT off the stage, in which Wardlow cannot answer the 10 count. Your winner, new TNT champion, Powerhouse Hobbs, in which, again, not much of a match, but it was a fun fight, which hopefully Wardlow can get his stuff back together and we could see a legitimate one-on-one match between these two powerhouses. Next up, we got Impact Wrestling, in which we start with Bully Ray pretty much calling out Tommy Dreamer. Dreamer wants a match against Bully Ray at Sacrifice. And Bully Ray's pretty much putting it down, saying, oh, he got burned by his face by the hot coffee. Then out comes Santino Marella, who pretty much says, it's not as bad as we thought, and he'll be ready to go for the match. Then out comes Bhupinder Gujjar, challenges Bully Ray for a match right then and there, in which Bully Ray accepts and wins in a relatively short nothing match. And then post-match, we have Dreamer coming out to save Gujjar with a chair. Then out comes Masha Slamovich, which that was kind of interesting, to stop Bully and Masha. Then Mickie James comes out to make the final save, running off the two heels. So it does look like we're getting some sort of team match in the near future. That could be interesting. Next up, we got Sami Callihan versus Rhino in a really hard-hitting, kind of hoss fight match, but it was definitely a fun one to watch. Finish actually comes when the Design, who is trying to recruit Sami Callihan, with Alan Angels jumping up on the ring apron, distracting the ref, and Big Vic, Victor from the Ascension, hitting Callahan in the head with a chair, which that was gnarly looking. And then Rhino hits the spear for the win. Definitely an interesting match. We'll see what the Design has in store for Callahan in the near future. Now we got Trey Miguel, current X Division champion, looking for some candidates for a challenge, considering the last pay-per-view he wasn't on. So it is announced that at Sacrifice he has a mystery opponent handpicked by Santino Marella. That should be interesting. And then at Multiverse United, which is the joint Impact New Japan show for WrestleMania week, he's going to defend it in Ultimate X if he makes it there. So that's going to be some fun challenge. I can't wait to see what we got. Next up, in a match of the year candidate, at least for me, I don't know about the rest of you, I suggest you go watch this. It's Jonathan Gresham versus Kushida. And woo! It was not only a mat classic, it was very well paced. A lot of great camaraderie between the two. And Kushida brilliantly counters an arm drag into his hoverboard lock finisher for the submission win. It's a crazy good match, and I definitely recommend it to anyone who's a fan of wrestling. Next up, we got a Killer Kelly promo in the ring, saying she's pretty much done with Taylor Wilde's game, who has been a witch woman, which is weird. Then Taylor Wilde comes out, does her little card thing. Out comes Kylan King, who has been on BTI for a little bit with Impact. She has also been in NWA. And they beat down Killer Kelly. Then backstage, they, who is now known as the Coven, challenge the Death Dolls for the Knockouts tag team titles, which that should be a fun one. We then get a PCO Eddie Edwards brawl in the middle of the desert, which ends with Eddie Edwards' driver hitting PCO with his car, which I hope PCO's okay. A lot of people are saying that was Davey Richards, who is currently a free agent. So we'll see if the Wolves get back together or not. And Fine Alamo, we got our main event for Impact Wrestling as Mickie James defends her Knockouts title against Giselle Shaw. And it was definitely way different from their last meeting during Mickie James's last rodeo. It was definitely a really good back and forth with minimal interference from Giselle Shaw's group. They did eventually get involved by the end, in which Shaw had Mickie James in a roll-up position. Then Purrazzo, who is at commentary, gets up from commentary, takes out Shaw's group, and rolls Mickie James on top, which gives Mickie James the win. Honestly, I'm not sure where this is going, so maybe we'll have another Purrazzo-Mickie James match for the title, which they've been having some really good matches as of late. So, fingers crossed. Next up, we got Ring of Honor Wrestling. A really solid wrestling show in which we start with Tony Deppen challenging Samoa Joe for the ROH TV title. Tony Deppen being a former ROH TV champion himself. And both went really, really well at it. Samoa Joe trying to outpower Deppen. Deppen using a bit more of his speed. But ultimately, Deppen gets caught in the Muscle Buster for Joe to pick up the victory and retain. This was definitely more of a technical match, which I do enjoy, and I think it lived up to the hype. And then post-match, we got Reach for the Sky, boy, as Mark Briscoe comes out and challenges Samoa Joe for the TV title. I do hope this is a match for the Supercard of Honor, because that definitely fits the bill for me. Then backstage, we got Dalton Castle and the boys challenging the Embassy for the future for the 6-man tag team titles. That should be a fun one. And then OGK stake their claim for the ROH tag team titles, in which we'll get to the big reveal of those in a little bit. As next up, we got a very interesting match. A match I'm not sure we've seen anywhere else before, as we got Trish Adora taking on Billie Starkz. Adora was in Ring of Honor before the Tony Khan purchase. She was in the women's title tournament. And Billie Starkz is kind of, at least to me, new to the scene, as she's only 16, which is absolutely nuts. And it was a well-paced, really, really good bout with Trish Adora picking up the win via the Lariat Tubman, which is the greatest finisher name I think I've ever heard. Next up, backstage, we have Christopher Daniels and Matt Sydal announcing their alliance. So they're going to be a team moving forward. That sounds like fun. Next up, we got Wheeler Yuta defending his pure title against Timothy Thatcher of Noah. This match was an absolute masterclass in pure wrestling rules, with everyone using their rope breaks. Yuta then gets a warning after a closed fist shot, But ultimately, the finish came with very interesting as Thatcher, who doesn't have any more rope breaks, it is in a submission hold by Yuta and is in the ropes. But again, he can't use the ropes now because he used all of his rope breaks. And then he taps out, which that definitely was an interesting finish. These two worked really, really well together, and hopefully we'll see more from the two down the line. And speaking of more, I want to see more. We got Aussie Open, which is Mark Davis and I forget the other guy's name. I do apologize. Taking on the team of Rhett Titus and Tracy Williams, who are former Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions. This was a definitely fun tag team match, which saw Aussie Open get the win. Hopefully we get to see Aussie Open a little bit more on Ring of Honor. And we'll see how this goes. Up next, we got Eddie Kingston in a very short match, taking out Ben Sejim. I don't know. In a, after a few seconds, hits the back fist for the win. He then calls out ROH World Champion Claudio Castagnoli and asks about his Ring of Honor challenge he issued last week. Now, Claudio comes out, pretty much says, a man without honor cannot be Ring of Honor champion, and then just leaves. So, I do hope we'll be getting this match at Supercard again, and this rivalry's heating up. I can't wait. And finally, for Ring of Honor, we have the Ring of Honor Women's title on the line as Athena takes on Willow Nightingale. This match was a heck of a good bout. A lot of good back and forth. Surprising suplex from Willow onto the ramp, which that was gnarly. Athena then picked up the win after her O-face finisher, which is the Eclipse, if you don't remember that. A top rope stunner, which is beautiful. And retains her title. So, yeah, I think Willow Nightingale had a heck of a showcase there, but I don't think Athena was losing that title. Now, we are getting into the home stretch, as next up we have Friday Night SmackDown. And we started off with the Usos coming into the arena, with pretty much everyone throwing praise on Jey Uso, and then Jey Uso telling Heyman to tell Roman, I'm here, and I'll explain my actions from Monday later on tonight, in which we'll get to. So, our first match of the evening, we have the Fatal 5-Way match, where the winner gets a shot at Intercontinental Champion Gunther at WrestleMania. That match consists of Sheamus, Drew McIntyre, L.A. Knight, Xavier Woods, who is a replacement for Kofi, who got injured in the brawl to set up this match last week, and Karrion Kross. This match was definitely a little hard to keep track of. At first, we did have L.A. Knight and Kross gaining an alliance, which I wouldn't be against in the near future. They eventually then turn on each other, trying to win the match. Match finish comes with a bro kick from Sheamus onto LA Knight, and Drew McIntyre hitting a Claymore on Xavier Woods. Both go for a pin at the same time. We got two refs in, counting the 3 count for both men. And no real winner, but the crowd, along with me, chanting triple threat, in which that match would bang. It is then seen in a backstage interview where Gunther pretty much says, I just wanted one challenger, we don't need two. So it is set for next week, this coming week. We will be getting Sheamus versus Drew McIntyre to find a challenger for Gunther, in which, there's going to be something that goes down that'll lead to the triple threat. No doubt about it. It is then announced that Rey Mysterio will be entering the Hall of Fame. Without a shadow of a doubt, this is deserved. And before Rey can get out his feelings on the microphone, out comes Judgment Day with Dom pretty much saying, oh, you missed so many things from my childhood, baseball games, holidays. You shouldn't be getting a Hall of Fame award. You should be getting the Deadbeat Dad Award, which, dang, Dom has really come into his own as a heel as a part of Judgment Day. And I cannot wait to see Rey Mysterio punch him in the face at WrestleMania. Then out to come to Rey Mysterio's aid is Legado del Fantasma, in which Santos Escobar and Rey have been kind of getting along, which, turning Legado del Fantasma face isn't the worst thing in the world. So I do like this. Then Santos pretty much says to Judgment Day, hey, we're supposed to have a match later. Let's push it up to right now. Judgment Day agrees. In a really fun, really evenly paced match where we see Legado del Fantasma trying to use their speed to outspeed Judgment Day, especially Damian Priest, who is definitely the right choice to be the powerhouse to this group. And Judgment Day picks up the win after a little bit of interference from Rhea Ripley. Dom with the frog splash, which, honestly, I can tell he's been working on that. And then post-match, we have Dom saying, guys, I want to talk face-to-face with my father. You guys can leave the ring. And he pretty much says, I would have rather been Eddie's son. And that's a little jab at the Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio feud over the parentage of Dominic Mysterio, which I can't believe they referenced. I love that. The feud was a little weird back in the day, but that was Eddie and Rey Mysterio can never have a bad match, I don't think. So, more than likely we're going to see Dom versus Rey at WrestleMania. So, hopefully we'll see what goes on there. Then we get Charlotte Flair backstage asking for a match because she's feeling like fighting. So, she gets it against Shotzi, who definitely slows down this bout a lot, including against Charlotte. During the match, Rhea Ripley comes down, sits at ringside, watches the rest of the match, which Charlotte Flair wins with the figure 8. Rhea Ripley then gets into the ring, pretty much says, I've grown ever since my loss to you at WrestleMania 36, and I'm ready to take that title. And Charlotte pretty much says, bring it on. So, this feud has kind of sputtered a little bit for me. I'm sure the match would be great. The last meeting was really, really good. And hopefully we get to see a little bit more before WrestleMania comes to town. And then we have our main event segment. We got Jay and Jimmy Uso in the ring, with Jay pretty much saying, this wasn't personal. I was here. I did what I did to protect my family, namely Jimmy Uso, who was, if Jay didn't come back, he would have been blamed for pretty much everything by Roman Reigns. And now that the Sami Zayn problem has been solved, we can turn our attention to the Cody Rhodes problem. This brings out Cody Rhodes, pretty much says, I've been hearing my name a lot. How about instead of just jawing, we get to step in. And then Jay pretty much says, oh, if you come in here now, you might not make it to WrestleMania. Out comes Sami Zayn in a hood through the crowd, starts beating down on the Usos. Cody Rhodes joins in and runs the Usos out of the ring. So, this is going to be an interesting feud going forward. Do we see Cody and Sami tag team up for, maybe a Raw or SmackDown before WrestleMania? We shall see. But more than likely, we're going to get Kevin Owens teaming with Sami Zayn. So, this is going to be interesting. And finally, our last match of the week, we have AEW Rampage, which starts off with a very fun, very kind of fast Sammy Guevara Action Andretti match. It was definitely very fast-paced. That ultimately saw Sammy Guevara pick up a win with help from Daniel Garcia, his JAS buddy, and a GTH, which honestly, match was fine. I'm getting kind of tired of the JAS shtick, especially for Daniel Garcia. Hopefully we get something interesting down the line. We then have a Jungle Boy promo. Pretty much says he's glad he's done with the Christian Cage issue. He is then going after anyone with a singles title. So maybe we see Orange Cassidy get challenged. Maybe we see Powerhouse Hobbs. We'll see. Who knows? I'm definitely excited for that one. Next up, in a very hard-hitting, almost house fight type bout, we have Preston Vance versus Konosuke Takeshita. And, they hit each other so hard. Lots of dueling elbows, lots of big boots. However, the win comes with a roll-up from Takeshita. So, keep him looking strong. Maybe doing a little damage to Vance, but we shall see what happens. Next, we got an interview from Swerve Strickland, where his crew, the Mogul Affiliates, are now on the shelf due to Keith Lee and Dustin Rhodes. But he is not done, and he has something more up his sleeve against Keith Lee and Dustin. So, we'll see what that becomes, and hopefully, hopefully he's ready to go on the attack. Now, next up, we have the announcement from Mark Briscoe himself. He will be relinquishing the Ring of Honor World Tag Team titles and put up for grabs at Supercard of Honor in the Reach for the Sky ladder match, which seems to me to be a multi-person ladder match for the tag titles. And it is announced the first team will be the Lucha Brothers, Rey Fenix and Pentagon Jr. I cannot wait to see those two. Those two are great in ladder matches. We'll see who joins them. Should be fun. And finally, we got the main event of the week as Riho takes on Nyla Rose. Now, Riho was the first AEW Women's Champion. Lost it to Nyla Rose a bit afterwards, maybe a month after. And, they've had some really good matches. Classic big versus little person. Definitely reminiscent of their old feud. Including Nyla Rose hitting a big leg drop on Riho, who's hanging on to the top rope. That always gets to me. But, at one point, we do have Marina Shafir, who is now teaming with Nyla Rose, takes Riho out of the ring, beats her up while Nyla Rose distracts the ref. Then we got a big old counter from the Beast Bomb, which I personally didn't see coming. And a roll-up by Riho, which yeah, that's our week in wrestling. I hope you guys enjoyed. I will, of course, bring you the next couple weeks of pro wrestling leading up to WrestleMania, which I cannot wait for. Super excited. I hope you are too. Please like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you thought about this week in wrestling. And until then, I shall see you next time. Happy wrestling, everybody.